Well, shalom, everyone, and welcome to our Shabbat night service. It is Shabbat, June 24th, 21st, 2024. We are excited about this lesson we're going to have on tonight, lesson 36 of the 52 lessons that will get us through the first 5 books of the Bible in 1 year. So, shalom, everyone. Welcome to our service. And thank you so much for joining me on tonight. Music just stopped playing. We do have kind of a long lesson tonight. So we're going to go ahead and pray and then get started. We usually give at least a minute for people that might let's just say haven't joined us yet. So we are excited. We're excited about this. This is our 4th season of going through the Torah, line upon line and precept upon precept. And so we are thankful that you have joined me on this journey, whether it's live tonight or after we post it on other social media platforms. We thank you and thank you for giving us this opportunity. We thank the creator of the universe for this opportunity, for this is the day that he has made. And so our minute is up. And so we're going to go ahead and pray and then get into our lesson for tonight. I need to take this page out. And I got to find it so I can take it out. My priestly prayer is, here we go. Get that out. So we'll have that and I forgot to do that earlier. So we'll have that at the end of our lesson. So we've been having a great time as we have just entered the book of Bamidbar, or in English, Numbers. Bamidbar means in the wilderness. And this is where everything begins to take place now, because we will start our journey as the Torah goes over some events just prior to leaving from in front of Mount Sinai and journeying to the land of promise, which is the land of Canaan. And so with that, let us pray and we will get ready for our split screen and share the word with you. Jehovah, our Elohim, creator of all things, thank you for this day. This is the day that you have made. We rejoice, we're glad in it. We thank you for this opportunity set before us that we may study your word together, studying to show ourselves approved, workmen not ashamed of our hire, rightly dividing the words of truth. We thank you and we praise you for all that you do, for the Ruach HaKodesh, your Holy Spirit that comes to guide us into all truth. We yield these earthen vessels to be filled all the more with your presence, with the tree of life, your word. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, we pray. Amen. All right. With that, we're going to get into our shared screen and get into our lesson for tonight. Let's get this up here. And so we're going to admit. All right. With that, we're going to get into our slideshow presentation. So this is lesson 36, and the Hebrew word is Beha'alotecha, which means when you set up. So once again, the Torah scrolls as they were sewn together. This is probably information that was given earlier, but is now repeated once again because they're getting ready to do what? the takedown of the tabernacle that they have erected. They're going to take it down and begin their journey towards the land of Canaan. And so we remembered in this book, which in Hebrew is Bamidbar, will comprise the whole journey from the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, which took place on the 50th day after they had left Egypt and journeyed in this direction rather than take another direction that would have gotten them to the promised land. But Jehovah said, you're not ready. So first, let me get this cultural aspect across to you so that you'll understand what it is you're supposed to do when you get there. And so this is what's been happening, and it's been over a year since they've left Egypt and since they arrived at Mount Sinai in day 46, something like that. And then on the 50th day after Passover, then was the Shavuot, or the gaining of the word and hearing the voice of Jehovah at Mount Sinai. So now we're in the book of Bamidbar. We're going to go to verse 1. This is lesson 36. Fascinating. We're already in lesson 36 of 52 lessons through the Torah in 1 year. And this is our 4th year going through the Torah with each one of you on our Torah service on Shabbat. So let's get into our introduction. The study begins with the lighting of the menorah, which was inside the holy place of the tabernacle. The menorah is symbolic of the light of the Torah, which is the tree of life. And we had a Wednesday night Bible study where we dealt with, a couple of weeks ago, the tree of life. So you can go back through our YouTube channel and go through that particular lesson. The menorah was to be a continual light inside the tabernacle and was to remain lit at all times. The priest, in this case, Aaron, was to make certain the menorah was lit to begin the day and to rekindle it or fill its cups before leaving the tabernacle for the evening. The theme throughout the study is the importance of the word in the lives of the children of Elohim. So we see how important it is to keep this tree of life ever present in our lives. Yeshua said, the word that I speak are spirit and they are life. So each day the high priest would approach the lighting of the menorah with the same reverence and respect for the task. And that's the way we should approach every day as we begin our day with the excitement of what lies ahead and, of course, allowing the Holy Spirit to guide us on our journey. The life of the priest would be in jeopardy if the lighting was approached in a haphazard manner. Many times in the society in which we live, we lack reverence for the things of like the word, the tree of life. And then how can we learn the importance of the Creator in our lives if we do not demonstrate the importance of his word? And the study ends with the brother and sister of Moses. This will be chapter 12, will end where Miriam and Aaron were speaking gossip or ill speaking of Moses. Many different understandings of what was being spoken. But in any case, Jehovah intercedes and explains to Aaron and Miriam the foolishness of their discussion. So we'll talk about that a little bit when we get in chapter 12. So let us get to our lesson on tonight. Jehovah said to Moshe, tell Aharon, when you set up the lamps, the 7 lamps are to cast their light forward in front of the menorah, right? Aaron did this. He lit his lamp so as to give light in the front of the menorah. So these wicks, these big cups, would be filled with the oil, and the wick would be down in there. And as it was taken out and lit, there was a method in which it was to be lit. And obviously, this was explained upon the initial lighting, but maybe some questions arose, and now this information is added here. We understand that he did exactly as Jehovah had ordered Moshe. Here is how the menorah was made. It was hammered gold from its base to its flowers, hammered work, following the pattern Jehovah had shown Moshe. This is how he made the menorah. Remember, it was one big block of gold. So all this gold was melted down and then made into this big block. And from that block, the hammering and getting the formation of this menorah, which was a 7-light candle stand, this menorah was developed. Jehovah said to Moshe, take the Levites from among the people of Israel and cleanse them. Here is how you are to cleanse them. Sprinkle the purification water on them. So this would have taken place now back at the original lighting and sacrificing of the tabernacle. Says that they're going to shave their whole body, not their head, just their body, of all hair on their body, and then they were to take a ritual bath. Then they were to take a young bull with this grain offering, which is to be fine flour mixed with olive oil, and you take another bull for a sin offering. You are to present the Levites. This is all of the Levites available for service in front of the tent of meeting and assemble the entire community of the people of Israel. You will present the Levite before Jehovah. The people of Israel will lay their hands on the Levite. So now this is the connection between these Levites and the children of Israel. Remember, the priests who were also Levites, but were the descendants of Aaron. So the people and the Levites are now, so this would be the leaders would put their hands on the Levites. So they're bringing this whole community together to understand the importance of what these people are going to be doing. Verse 11, and Aaron will offer the Levites before Jehovah as a wave offering from the people of Israel, so that they may do Jehovah's service. The Levite will lay their hands on the heads of the bulls, and the one will offer as a sin offering, and the other as a burnt offering to Jehovah to make atonement for the Levites. You are to place the Levites before Aaron and his sons and offer them as a wave offering to Jehovah. So they were then dedicated into the service of what Aaron and his sons would instruct them to do. And what they were instructed to do as they assembled, disassembled, helping with the killing of the animal for the sacrifices, they were going to do all this, but first they were anointed and consecrated for that service that they would be a part of. He says, in this way, you will separate the Levite from the people of Israel, and the Levite will belong to me. This is what Jehovah says. So they're dedicating these people to the service of the tabernacle. After that, the Levite will enter and do the service of the tent of meeting. You will cleanse them and offer them as a wave offering, because they are entirely given to me from among the people of Israel. I have taken them for myself in place of all those who come first out of the womb. That is the firstborn males of the people of Israel. Remember that prior to this, the oldest of the firstborn male would be considered the one that was going to be the priest of that family. And everything would be passed on from the father through that son. However, because of the sin of the golden calf, where many of the people frolicked and had this golden calf that they danced around it here at Mount Sinai, then they lost that privilege. So the Levites were the only ones who didn't get involved, and therefore the Levites took the place of the firstborn male. So now the only ones that are going to be involved in the priest, the dedication of the service, the serving at the tabernacle, were from the Levite class, which is also the class, the tribe rather, from which Moses and Aaron were descendants. It says, I have given the Levites to Aaron and his sons from among the people of Israel to do the service of the people of Israel in the tent of meeting and to make atonement for the people of Israel so that no plague will fall on the people of Israel in consequence of their coming too close to the sanctuary. So all of this, remember, around the tabernacle itself, around the courtyard, the Levites were the first line of, let's say, defense, so that the people would not misappropriate in any way the tabernacle. The Levites were responsible for making certain the people stayed at bay and did what they had been told to do. This is what Moshe and Aaron and all the community people of Israel did to the Levites. The people of Israel acted in accordance with everything that Jehovah had ordered Moshe in regard to the Levites. The Levites purified themselves and washed their clothes. Then Aaron offered them as a holy gift before Jehovah and made atonement for them in order to cleanse them. After that, the Levites came to do their service in the tent of meeting in front of Aaron and his sons. They acted in accordance with Jehovah's orders to Moshe in regard to the Levites. Jehovah said to Moshe, here are the instructions concerning the Leviim or the Levites. When they reach the age of 25, they are to begin performing their duties serving in the tent of meeting. And when they reach the age of 50, they are to stop performing this work and not serve any longer. So remember, they're dismantling and putting this back together, putting back together the tabernacle. They are working with the animals and making sure that everything goes well and assisting the priest in the dedication. They can't offer any sacrifices on the altar, but they are assisting the priest. They would be, in some regards, skinning the animals so that that part that was going to be burnt on the altar and for the full burnt offering, all of those things would have been done, and the Levites were responsible for helping to make certain they were all done. Now, remember that they were counted from the age of 30 days all the way to the age, all males were considered Levites, but only these males from 25 and above, which we read about in chapters 1 and 2, were going to participate in the work around the tent of meeting. They will assist their brothers as we close out chapter 8, who are performing their duties in the tent of meeting, but they themselves will not do any of the work. This is what you are to do with the Levites in regard to their duties. Now, the work that they would not do is waving the body parts or sacrificing on the altar the body parts, but they could do the other work in order to make the sacrificial system operate. Now, when they got to be 50, they were no longer going to be doing that. However, they would then be what? The teachers, because once they get into the land, they're going to be Levites around the 12 tribes. They're going to have this land that has been set aside for them to make sure that they have the animals for the sacrifice, and all those things are taking place. And so once they were 50 years old, then they would be what? The teachers of the young. You couldn't start until you were 25. So from the time that they were born and that 30-day period was completed, then they would be part of those that were taught and would see what it is their responsibilities were. Chapter 9, Jehovah spoke to Moshe in the desert in the what? First month of the second year, after they had left the land of Egypt. He said, let the people of Israel observe Pesach at its designated time. So now we see that the tabernacle and everything had to be completed by the time of Pesach or Passover. So it was done in time. And so now Jehovah says, let them observe the Passover. On the 14th day of this month at dusk, you ought to observe it at its designated time. We went over that, the Moedim, this past week. He set apart time that Jehovah required all the men to be present at the temple. You ought to observe it according to all its regulations and rules. These are the things they had been taught while the assembling of the tabernacle had been taking place. Moses told the people of Israel to observe Pesach. So they observed Pesach at dusk on the 14th day of the month in the Sinai desert, right there in front of Mount Sinai. The people of Israel acted in accordance with all that Jehovah had ordered Moshe. We go to verse 6. But there were certain people who had become unclean because of someone's corpse, so that they could have not observed Pesach on that day. So what happened? Somebody died, and remember there was a 7-day cleansing period. So if someone died, their mother, their father, or whatever, these people, then they would not be allowed to participate in the Passover celebration. And so therefore, they came to Moshe and Aaron and said, we are unclean because of someone's corpse. But why must we be kept from bringing the offering for Jehovah at the time designated for the people of Israel? Moshe answered them, wait, so that I can hear what Jehovah will order concerning you. So he didn't just make up something, this is what I think. He would go inside the tent, speak with Jehovah, raise the issue, and Jehovah would respond. And then Moses would come out and tell the people what Jehovah had said. Jehovah said to Moshe, tell the people of Israel that if any of you now or in future generation is unclean because of a corpse, or if he or she has been on a trip abroad, nevertheless, he is to observe Passover. So you want to observe it, you're supposed to gather there. So if you can't because of that or because you were off in a battle somewhere and couldn't get back, then you get another opportunity. But he was on the second month on the 14th day at dusk. They are to eat it with matzah and maror. So the bitter herbs and the matzah would be in the lamb that was sacrificed would be eaten in the second month on the 14th day by this group. They are to leave none of it until morning, and they are not to break any of its bones. They are to observe it according to all the regulations for Pesach. Remember now, Yeshua is was our Passover lamb. And so therefore, remember, they could not break a bone in his leg. They were breaking the bone so the other men would suffocate under their weight and die. But for Yeshua, they said he was already dead, so they didn't have to break any of his bones. But the person who is clean and not on a trip, who fails to observe Passover, will be cut off from his people. So they're going to meet with an untimely death because he did not bring the offering for Jehovah at his designated time. That person will bear the consequences of his sin. So to not do it, it's impossible for them not to do it when they're all gathering around the tabernacle. That's what we see in this picture on this page. That's where the people were gathered around. So yes, they were going to serve, but he said in the future generation. So in the future, you make sure that you can get there. And many times on Paul's journeys, he would want to break away and get to the temple for these days of celebration, that would take those 3 times a year that the men were to show up. Verse 14, if a foreigner is staying with you and wants to observe Pesach for Jehovah, he is to do it according to the regulations and rules of Pesach. You are to have the same law for the foreigner as for the citizen of the land. On the day the tabernacle was put up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, that is the tent of the testimony, and in the evening, Over the tabernacle was what appeared to be fire. So there was a big cloud shielding the people from what? The hot sun in the daytime, and then the cold of the night, the fire would rage over the over the tabernacle area, thereby providing heat. Whenever the cloud, verse 17, whenever the cloud was taken up from above the tent, the people of Israel continued their travel, and they camped wherever the cloud stopped. So now they're being guided. The Shekinah glory, which we say is the Ruach HaKodesh, guiding them on their journey to the land of Canaan, just as he has been given to us by Yeshua to guide us on our journey to fulfill all that we have been sent to this earth realm to do. Verse 18, at the order of Jehovah, the people of Israel traveled. At the order of Jehovah, they camped. And as long as the cloud stayed over the tabernacle, they stayed in camp. Even when the cloud remained on the tabernacle for a long time, the people of Israel did what Jehovah had charged them to do and did not travel. Sometimes the cloud was a few days over the tabernacle, according to Jehovah's order. They remained in camp, and according to Jehovah's order, they traveled. Sometimes the cloud was there for only evening until morning, so that when the cloud was taken up in the morning, they traveled. So these priests had to get this thing down. If they set it up and the people would come and gather around it and make sure the sacrifices took place for that day, and then that morning and evening sacrifice would take place. And if it was time to go, then they had to take it down. And while it was being disassembled, the camps were preparing to leave, followed by the tribe of Judah in the beginning. At Jehovah's order, verse 23, they camped, and at Jehovah's order, they traveled. They did what Jehovah had charged them to do through Moses. So it's the same thing that we're experiencing in our lives as the Holy Spirit each and every day wants to guide us so that we can do what has been set before us to do. Jehovah said to Moshe, make 2 trumpets, make them of hammered silver. Use them for summoning the community and for sounding the call to break camp and move on. When they are sounded, remember the Levites would do this. And in many cases, it would be the priest that would do it. When they sounded, the entire community, when they are sounded, these trumpets made out of silver are sounded, the entire community to assemble before you at the entrance to the, so there was a certain sound that they would make if in fact they were just together. There was another sound for leaving. There was another sound for each tribe as they were supposed to now go. So all of these were done through the order of the priests. If only one is sounded, then just the leaders, the heads of the clans of Israel, are assembled before you. When you sound an alarm, the camp to the east will commence traveling. So when it was time to go, the priest would come out, blow this sound on these silver trumpets, and Judah would immediately begin to prepare to go forward. When you sound the second alarm, the camps to the south will set out. That will be the next 3. Remember, there was 3 in the front, 3 in the south, 3 in the west, and 3 in the north. They will sound alarms to announce when to travel. However, when the community is to be assembled, you are to sound, but don't sound an alarm. It will be the sons of Aaron, the priest, who are to sound the trumpets. This will be a permanent regulation for you through all your generations. So we see then that these priests that were responsible for getting everybody ready to go would be the sons of Aaron. When you go to war in your land against an adversary who is oppressing you, You are to sound an alarm with the trumpets. Then you will be remembered before Jehovah your Elohim, and you will be saved from your enemy. So these priests were going to sound the alarm for battle as well. And so when it was time to go battle, they would understand that the priests who were instructed by Jehovah to prepare for battle would blow. So Jehovah is what? With them. Verse 10, also on your days of rejoicing, at your designated times, the what? The Moedim, and on Rosh Hashanah, or the new moon. So the new moon was announced by the blast of the trumpet. You are to sound the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings. These will be your reminder before your Elohim. I am Jehovah, your Elohim. And so basically they would, when there's an offering getting ready to go forth, it's placed on the altar, the trumpet will sound. That was letting everybody know. When the temple was standing, everyone would know at the time of the morning sacrifice because the trumpets would blow. And when the trumpets blew, the people knew that they were getting ready to do the what? The morning sacrifice. So there were different cadences of the trumpets that would go forth, and the people would understand what it is was getting ready to transpire. On the 12th day of the second month of the on the 20th day of the second month of the second year, the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle of the testimony. And the people of Israel moved out in stages from the Sinai desert. The cloud stopped in the Paran desert. So they set out on their first journey in keeping with Jehovah's order through Moshe. So now we see that they've broken camp and they're ready to go. In the lead was the banner of the camp of the descendants of Judah, Yehuda, whose companies moved forward over his company. And over this company was Nahshon, the son of Aminadab. So this would be the leader of the holding the flag as they would go forth. Over the company of the tribe of the descendants of Issachar was Nathaniel, the son of Zuar. Over the company of the descendants of Zebulun was Eliab, the son of Helon. And so these three would go forth, and these men would be holding their banner, and all this was done in a specific order, and it brought terror to anybody around. Then the tabernacle was taken down, and the descendants of Gershon and the descendants of Merari set out, carrying the tabernacle. Next, the banner of the camp of Reuben. So then, once these three tribes, the Levites were dismantling the tabernacle and making sure that the holy ornaments had been carried out, and they would then assemble around these things. So then Reuben from the south in his companies, Eliezer, the son of Shedur, over the company of the tribe of the descendants of Simeon was Shlumiel, the son of Rashadi. Over the company of the descendants of God was Elisa, the son of Deuel. So these three tribes now are on the south. Then the descendants of Kahat set out carrying the sanctuary so that the tabernacle could be set up before they arrived. So all of the holy pieces would be towards the rear of all of the tabernacle parts, because they would set them up and then bring those holy things and place them inside. The banner of the camp of the descendants of Ephraim moved forward by companies. Over his company was Elishama, the son of Amihud. Over the company of the tribe of the descendants of Manasseh was Gamaliel, the son of Badadzor. Over the company of the descendants of Benjamin was Abidan, the son of Gidoni. So these would be in the what? The south. They would be responsible for that, the rear, bringing up the rear. The banner of the camp of the descendants of Dan, forming the rear guard for all the camp, moved forward by companies. Over his company was Ahiezer, the son of Ammishaddai. Over the company of the tribe of the descendants of Asher was Pagiel, the son of Okran. Over the company of the descendants of Naphtali was Ahira, the son of Enan. So I was mistaken. The camp of Ephraim would be to the north. So you would have the front group, then the outer group on the south, the outer group on the north, the parts of the tabernacle and the holy parts in the center, and at the end was Gad, and those will be the last companies to leave and go out. This is how the people of Israel were to travel. Moshe said to Horeb, the son of Reuel, the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law, that was Jethro. We are traveling to the place which Jehovah said, I will give it to you. Come with us. Now, he's been here for a minute, but he had said earlier, I don't want to go. But as they're now getting ready to break camp, he's given another opportunity. And we realize that he turned it down again. Come with us and we will treat you well because Jehovah has promised good things to Israel. But he replied, I will not go. I would rather go back to my own country and my own kinsmen. Moses continued, please don't leave us because you know that we have to camp in the desert and you can serve as our eyes. The same argument he made before in the book of Exodus. If you go with us, then whatever good Jehovah does for us, we will do the same for you. So as what? As born again believers who have been grafted in according to the words of Paul, you see that whatever was good for them becomes good for us. We become a part of this move of the creator of the universe. So they set out from Jehovah's mountain and traveled for 3 days. Ahead of them on this 3-day journey went the Ark of Jehovah's covenant, searching for a new place to stop. The cloud of Jehovah was over them during the day as they set out from the camp. When the ark moved forward, Moshe said, arise, Jehovah, may your enemies be scattered. Let those who hate you flee before you. When it stopped, he said, return, Jehovah, of the many, many thousands of Israel. So this is what Moses would say, and this is what is said at our synagogue services at the temple when the Ark of the Covenant is revealed, and then when it is put back into this chamber that it resides. Verse 11, but the people began complaining about their hardships to Jehovah. You know how we complain when things don't go our way? Well, they was on a 3-day journey, so that first march, they had to do some stuff. So they was like, hold on. When Jehovah heard it, his anger flared up. So that fire from Jehovah broke out against them and consumed the outskirts of the camp. So those people began to complain, and it is believed that a lot of that mixed multitude was this group who were saying, wait a minute, we didn't know it was going to be like this. Well, fire broke out against them. Then the people cried to Moshe, and Moshe prayed to Jehovah, and the fire abated. So the people repented. Hey, we're sorry. We don't know what got into us. All right. The place was called Devera, which means burning, because Jehovah's fire broke out against them. Next, the mixed crowd that was with them grew greedy for an easier life. See, they was all complaining because here bringing up the rear, all the dust and everything was getting on. They just kept complaining. If only we had meat. Now they're complaining about they want some meat to eat. We remember the fish we used to eat in Egypt. It cost us nothing. and the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, the garlic. But now we're withering away. We have nothing to look at but this manna. They had animals, they had other things to eat. But once you begin to get into that spirit of complaining, if you don't quickly repent and turn from that, then you get worse and worse, and you begin to walk by what? Sight and not by faith. By the way, the manna was like a coriander seed, white like gum resin. The people would go out and gather it and would grind it up in the mills or pound it to paste with mortar and pestle. Then they would cook it in pots and make it into loaves that tasted like cakes baked with olive oil. When the dew settled on the camp during the night, the manna came with it. Moshe heard the people crying, family after family, each person at the entrance to his tent. So now they coming to the tent where Moses is and crying out, oh, Moses, we tired of this manna. Get us some meat to eat. Moses heard the people crying, family after family, at the entrance to his tent. The anger of Jehovah flared up violently, and Moses too was displeased. Moses asked Jehovah, are you treating your servant so badly? Why haven't I found favor in your sight, so that you put the burden of this entire people on me? And Moses is complaining now because they're supposed to know better by now. Enough has transpired. They should have grown from the milk of babies and eaten some of what? And understanding the value of the manna they were eating. They didn't, and they still began to complain. First it's the water, then it's the animals, then it's the manna. Just always complaining. So Moses asked him in verse 12, did I conceive this people? Was I their father so that you tell me, carry them in your arms like a nurse carrying a baby? So he's complaining basically about the fact that they're acting like babies rather than mature adults. To the land, you're going to take them, carrying them, and do I have to carry them to the land? They complain they don't have enough stamina, they don't have enough to eat, always complaining. He says, where am I going to get meat to give this entire people? Trying to remember what the people asked Yeshua when there was people that had been sitting there listening to him minister all day. He said, okay, send them home. The apostles going to send them home because he said, we ain't got enough to feed all these people. Let's give them something. So Yeshua said, no, you feed them. This is the same thing that we see going on here. Moses said, because they keep bothering me with their crying and saying, give us meat to eat. I can't carry this entire people by myself alone. It's too much for me. If you're going to treat me this way, then just kill me outright. Please, if you have any mercy towards me, and don't let me go on being this miserable. Now, it's interesting because remember earlier, Jethro had told Moses to get some elders and let them be the judges. Well, evidently, some of them weren't acting right. And Jehovah said to Moshe, bring me 70 elders of Israel, people you recognize as leaders of the people and officers of theirs. Bring them to the tent of meeting and have them stand there with you. Now, the tent had been set up at that time. But now, he's saying, okay, now we're going to consecrate these leaders. They need to be consecrated to help you in your dealing with the people. I will come down and speak with them, with you there. Not them, with you there. And I will take some of the spirit which rests on you and put it on them. Then they will carry the burden of the people along with you, so that you won't carry it yourself alone. Tell the people, says Jehovah, consecrate yourselves for tomorrow, and you will eat meat, because you cried in the ears of Jehovah. You've been crying in my ears, says Jehovah. If only we had meat to eat. We had the good life in Egypt. See, that's where you go when you're always complaining about the place that you are at this particular point in time, not seeing the value of what the Lord may be doing in your life. You can't see it through your complaining. about your station. You won't see all of the rich and beautiful things that the Creator is doing for you because your head is full of complaints. And that Yetzer Hara, that evil inclination, will overcome you and you will be most miserable. All right, Jehovah says, I'm going to give you meat and you will eat it. You won't eat it just 1 day or 2 days or 5 or 10 or 20 days, but a whole month until it comes out your nose and you hate it because you have rejected Jehovah who is here with you and distressed him with your crying and asking, why did we ever leave Egypt? That's where you go. Now you want to go back to Egypt. You think you want to go back. Anything is better than where you are, not realizing the value of where you are, that there's a purpose in where you are. But Moses says, here I am with 600,000 men on foot, and yet you say, I will give them meat to eat for a whole month. Same thing the apostles said to Yeshua. We got enough, 5 loaves and 2 fish. That ain't enough to feed all these people. If whole flocks and herds were slaughtered for them, says Moses, would it be enough? If all the fish in the sea were collected for them, would even that be enough? So now here come Moshe is letting the spirit get upon him and he's complaining. Jehovah answered Moshe, verse 23. Has Jehovah's arm grown short? Now you will see whether what I said will happen or not. Same thing Yeshua ended up saying. Sit the people down in groups and watch. This is what Jehovah is saying to Moshe here. You will see what I will do. Moses went out and told the people what Jehovah had said. All right, then he collected 70 of the leaders of the people and placed them all around the tent. Jehovah came down in the cloud, spoke to him, took some of the spirit that was on him and put it on the 70 leaders. When the spirit came to rest on them, they prophesied. But not afterward. So to announce to the people that these were your leaders, the spirit of prophecy came upon them. My Lord, Yahashua, the son of Nun, who from his youth up had been Moses' assistant. Now this is Yahashua or Joshua. So Joshua comes to him and lets the people know lost my place. All right. There were 2 men, I'm sorry, verse 26. There were 2 men who stayed in the camp, one named Eldad and the other Medad. And the spirit came to rest on them. They were supposed to be where the other ones were, but they didn't make it there for whatever reason. Yet, since their name was on this list, when the spirit came, it also affected him. They were listed to go out to the tent, but they hadn't done so. And they prophesied in the camp. A young man ran and told Moshe, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. Yahashua, the son of Nun, who from his youth had been with Moses' assistant, answered, my Lord Moshe, stop them. But Moses replied, another incident that took place with Yeshua and his disciples when some people were what? Prophesying and healing, but were not in the group that was around Yeshua. Yeshua said, let them. Better they doing that, speaking the word and doing those things than doing the opposite, working for the enemy. But Moses replied, are you so zealous to protect me? He said, I wish all Jehovah's people were. He wished the spirit rest on all of them. I wish Jehovah would put his spirit on all of them. Moshe and the leaders of Israel went back into the camp. So now these people can go back and help stem the tide of complaining because they've seen that these people are there to serve for them and to help them. Verse 30. Moshe and the leaders of Israel went back to the camp, and Jehovah sent out a wind, which brought quails from across the sea and let them fall near the camp, about a day's trip away on each side of the camp and all around it, covering the ground to a depth of 3 feet. The people stayed up all that day and all that night, all the next day, gathering the quails. A person gathering the least collected 10 heaps. Then they spread them out for themselves all around the camp. But while the meat was still in their mouth, before they had chewed it up, see, this is greed. They just gorging themselves. This is greed, and Jehovah ain't pleased with that. So the anger of Jehovah flared up against the people, and Jehovah struck the people with a terrible plague. Therefore, that place was named Kivrat Haitavah, graves of greed. They were greedy. They just wanted to gorge themselves, because there they buried the people who were so greedy. Now, this is a particular group of them that just stuffed themselves until they were actually consumed by what they were eating. From Kivrat Tavad, the people traveled to Azzarot, and they stayed at Azzarot. So now they're moving again. And as we conclude our lesson for the day, we see Miriam and Abram, chapter 12. Miriam and Aharon began criticizing Moshe on account of the Ethiopian woman he had married, for he had in fact married an Ethiopian woman. Now, we don't know how many wives Moses may have had. This could be the same Midianite, but she was called an Ethiopian or a Cushite. So we're not quite sure why this particular description was given to her. But Miriam and Aaron began not talking to Moses. They were criticizing, they were talking to each other. And basically the way the Hebrew has done this, by placing Miriam first, she was primarily going to Aaron and complaining about some aspect of what Moses was doing. They said, is it true that Jehovah has spoken only with Moshe? So does Moses, he's our brother, who does he think he really is, that he can do whatever this is he's doing? And most scholars believe it had something to do with kind of neglect, because spending most of his time dealing with the people, he goes to the tent, he can't rest, but people are complaining about eating. So maybe he just decided to go to the inside the courtyard and can't get any rest. So we know it's believed that it was some form of neglect of this wife. Hasn't he spoken with us too? Jehovah heard them. So they spoke these words came out of her mouth. Basically said that Miriam was speaking to Aaron about something he had heard concerning Moses' life. Suddenly Jehovah told Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam, come out, you three, to the tent of meeting. The three of them went out. They heard it. It was meant for them to hear it. Those three heard it, and those three went to the tent of meeting. Jehovah came down in the column of cloud and stood at the entrance to the tent. He summoned Aaron, Aharon, and Miriam, and they both went forward. He said, listen to what I say. When there is a prophet among you, I, Jehovah, make myself known to him in a vision. I speak with him in a dream. But it isn't that way with my servant Moses. He is the only one who is faithful in my entire household. With him, I speak face to face and clearly, not in riddles. He sees the image of Jehovah. So why weren't you afraid to criticize my servant Moshe? the anger of Jehovah flared up against them, and he left. So after speaking that, why weren't you afraid to criticize my servant Moshe? Then he leaves. When the cloud was removed from above the tent, Miriam had Zorat as white as snow. She wasn't white before this. She's white now. Aharon looked at Miriam, and she was as white as snow. Aaron said to Moshe, "Oh, my Lord, please don't punish us for this sin we committed so foolishly. Please don't let her be like a stillborn baby with its body half eaten away when it comes out of its mother's womb." Moshe cried to Jehovah, "Oh, Elohim, I beg you, please heal her." Jehovah answered Moshe, "If her father had merely spit in her face, wouldn't she hide herself in shame for 7 days? For this is a daughter that has done something against her father Jehovah, and therefore he is disowning her for a period of 7 days. So let her be shut out the camp for 7 days. After that, she can be brought back in." Miriam was shut out the camp 7 days, and the people did not travel until she was brought back in. So this is letting her know she was forgiven. The people are not going to leave her. She was in error, but the consequences have been spoken. Therefore, that's what's going to happen. They did not leave. The cloud did not leave, because if the cloud had left, they would have had to leave. She remained outside of the camp for a period of 7 days, and the people stayed in that particular location. Afterward, the people went on from Hatzerot and camped in the Paran desert. Well, that concludes our lesson for tonight. It was fascinating. I mean, there's a lot in there, but it's kind of long. And so we didn't get a chance to give as much commentary as we would have liked, because we wanted to make sure we got through the lesson. So let's get out of our shared screen. And with that, let us give a priestly blessing to each and every one that's joined us on tonight. May Jehovah bless you and keep you. May Jehovah make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May Jehovah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom, everyone. I'll see you on Wednesday night for our Wednesday night Bible study.